Denmark says drone incursions, which have forced the country to close its airports this week, are a hybrid attack, and officials say they expect there will be more of them. They also say they believe the drones are being operated by a, quote, professional actor. But there was no evidence of a link to Russia. The Defence Minister called it the most serious attack on Danish critical infrastructure to date and has reached out to NATO and the EU to discuss the incidents. Danish police said it was not possible to down the drones that were spotted at 3 airports and a military base, and that no one had been arrested. The incidents come a day after Copenhagen airport was shut down due to drones and follows a series of incursions of Russian drones and aircraft into EU airspace this month. A short while ago, I spoke to Danish journalist Jacob Ilborg about the latest updates from Denmark.
Well, basically, as you said before, a lot of questions, not so many answers. Really, right now, we know, as you say, that this is what's called a hybrid attack. I think there was a lot of, if not saying they believe Russia is behind, kind of hinting at it, at least. And also, as you said, of course, they expect more to come. So we know that security in Denmark has now been elevated, and a lot of questions about whether Denmark is prepared for this, both in terms of drones and should it be something else, are being asked.
Yeah, this is, of course, you allude to it, the second incident this week. Authorities say there is a professional actor behind it, but not much more. Who are you hearing can be behind this? What's being speculated at this point?
Well, I suppose the elephant in the room is very much Russia. There were some direct questions and some answers from the defense minister. But there's no doubt that Denmark has been in a tit-for-tat with Russia. Only a couple of weeks ago, Denmark announced that they were buying long-range missile systems for $10 billion, the biggest purchase ever in Danish military history. And Russia didn't like that very much. In Denmark, I think that most experts see this as a provocation, if you will, to try and test the Danes. How do they react to drones being sent in over Danish airports like this? And I think so far, I think it's fair to say that there's a growing feeling of insecurity in Denmark. Are we up to the job? How far will the Russians go, if it is the Russians indeed? What will the Danish response be? There's been talk about whether Denmark should activate the clause 4 in the NATO cooperation, which means that this would be discussed at the NATO Council. The government has so far not gone so far, but they've said that they will discuss the issue with their NATO colleagues. And of course, there's a very big security EU meeting in Denmark next week. That will, of course, be very, very high security there as well to make sure that everything goes as planned.
Who's behind it is one of the questions. The other one is why these drones are not being shot down. Is there nothing that can be done to protect Danish airspace at this moment?
Well, we know that the defense chief said that it was an active choice not to shoot the drones down. They could have done it if they wanted to, he says. Why they didn't do it, he didn't really clarify. There is this strain of thought that, in a sense, it could endanger other airplanes in the air, or indeed, if the drones fall on the ground, could hurt someone. But there is a lot of questions being asked from the Danish political opposition as to why the Danish defense didn't do more, Danish police, who controls the drones, didn't do more. But right now, Anthony, it is a lot of a lot of questions and not too many answers. Everything is kind of happening as we go. And as I said before, they actually expect more to come from Russia. This is, the defense minister said, not going away. And therefore, Denmark will have to learn to deal with being in a very new security situation.
Jacob Ilborg, a Danish journalist, thanks so much. DW Brussels correspondent Lucia Schulten is also following the story for us. I asked her earlier how much concern there is at European Union level at this cluster of drone incidents coming so closely together.
Yeah, so we have not had fresh reactions from Brussels, from the European Commission or NATO this morning, but we did get reactions after the first incidents. And there we heard Ursula von der Leyen saying that this is indeed in her opinion, a pattern of persistent contestation of the EU's borders. And there have been talks between Ursula von der Leyen and also the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen about these incidents. And I think it's safe to say that this morning Europe or the European Union woke up even more alarmed than they were on Tuesday morning. These talks that have been ongoing will also be taken further. We have just heard from the Danish government that they would get in touch with EU and NATO. And also we have heard from the Danish Prime Minister herself on Tuesday morning that the first incidents on Monday night were the most serious breach to infrastructure, to Danish critical infrastructure up to date. So there is certainly a high level of being alarmed and being concerned here in the European Union.
Yeah, Denmark, as you say, have reached out to the EU and NATO to discuss the issue of drones. Where do NATO stand on this?
So the NATO Secretary General has been very careful in calling out who is behind it. So there's, of course, the speculation that Russia might be behind it. We have heard from the Kremlin rejecting this accusation. And when NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has been asked on Tuesday in a press conference, he said it is too early to say who is behind it. So everyone is being really careful. Also, the European Union is being really careful. But they are all closely watching this and they are ready to cooperate with Denmark and talk to Denmark about this.
The Danish Justice Minister said this morning the threat of hybrid attacks is here to stay. What are the EU's long-term plans? Is there a long-term plan to deal with this type of threat?
So hybrid attacks in general, let me maybe remind you of this, are not only drones flying around your airport, it's also other attacks that might happen to your critical infrastructure without being of a military nature per se. So, for example, also a cyber attack or misinformation could be considered a hybrid threat. And this is, of course, something which is not completely new to the European Union or to European Union countries. And it is, in general, on them to react to them and to fight them back. But there is a role for the European Union, which is to coordinate and make the member states more resilient in this. And when it comes to this drone attacks, there is discussion that has been already ongoing before these happenings in Denmark, which is to have a drone wall on the eastern flank and to build up a drone wall together with member states which are really being affected, so to say, frontline states. And Denmark is now joining them, and they will meet on Friday to discuss this further, how they can become more resilient and build this European drone wall.
Lucia Schulten in Brussels, thank you.